Well, good morning, folks. Welcome along to this morning's SQL Server breakfast from WARDY IT Solutions. This morning I want to take you on a little bit of a journey, and this is a journey that I experience day in, day out working with customers, because this is really a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So for those that don't know me, my name's Peter Ward, and I'm the Chief Technical Architect for WARDY IT Solutions. But for those that know me a little bit more intimately, you'll know my background. I used to be responsible for the largest SQL Server site south of the equator, looking after around about 3,500 SQL Server instances on a daily basis. So you can imagine back in the SQL 6.5 days, the challenges that posed. How do we go about monitoring all of those databases across our topology? Now, many of you aren't dealing with topologies that are that size, but you're certainly dealing with a number of challenges about how do you go and get that maximum value out of that monitoring, because that monitoring is a key component that's needed to look after all of our SQL databases. But as you know, as a DBA, we're being asked to do a number of different challenges throughout the organisation. So look, just a couple things about me. If you need to get a hold of me, my email address is up there. More than happy for you to ping me. Or alternatively, if you're one of those people into Twitter, happy for you to go and stalk me as well. Or if you want to send me a message via that, go for it. So I'm a SQL Server MVP. I also work for Microsoft as a Virtual Technical Specialist. I was actually awarded the Virtual Technical Specialist of the Year throughout Australia a couple of weeks ago as well from Microsoft. And I also run WARDY IT Solutions. So look, WARDY IT Solutions is Australia's leading SQL Server consultants, trainers and BI specialists. And you might be saying, look, that's a pretty big claim to fame. We've actually won the Data Platform Partner of the Year award from Microsoft since 2009. So for the last 3 years we've had that award. We've been awarded as part of the APC, so too many three-letter acronyms, TLAs. So the Australian Computer Society has awarded us for the last 2 years for service delivery. The AIA likewise has awarded us. We've been awarded by Anthill magazine as being one of the most innovative companies in Australia, etc., etc. In fact, we actually just had to extend the trophy cabinet at work in order to go and put all of these awards in there. So, and apart from that, I'm just an all-round nice guy. And the reason I'm actually a really nice guy is because I actually went and raided my cellar. So I'm actually a bit of a red wine drinker, as you can probably tell from the physique. So what I've got here is I've actually got a great bottle of 2009 Shiraz, probably worth around about 110 bucks, so they'd go lovely with the Sangers for lunch today. So in order to get a hold of that bottle of wine, what you'll see in front of you is a pack. Inside of that you'll find that there's an eval form. Simply fill in the eval form and we'll get you in the draw to go and win that lovely bottle, and I'm sure you'll be the envy of everybody back in the office there. So what are we going to do today in today's presentation? Well, I want to really define what the role of a DBA is in an organisation today, because DBAs mean different things to different organisations. You've got development DBAs, you've got operational DBAs, and you've got a number of other different roles. But there's a number of key things that it doesn't matter what your role as a DBA is, you're responsible for. We're then going to look at how we can go about monitoring SQL Server performance, because that's really the hidden thing with SQL Server. Yes, there's the obvious things that we need to go and monitor with backups and things like that, but really performance is one of those things that's a bit like a hockey stick curve. We start to get poor performance and then it gets bad very, very quickly, and it's almost an exponential process. And we want to be able to isolate and identify very quickly as soon as our servers start to fall out of a known pattern, so that we can then start to identify and resolve those issues before the help desk starts calling us. And then we're going to look at there must be a better way. How do we, instead of having to do all of this manually, how can we go and seamlessly integrate this process so that as DBAs we don't need to worry about that? So what is the role of the DBA? Does anyone want to share with me maybe what being a DBA means to them, or maybe what the DBAs in their organisation are responsible for? Anyone want to maybe share? Yep. Anything that stores data? Yeah? Anything else? So really, if we think about what the role of a DBA is, a role of the DBA is really that data custodian. They're responsible for protecting that data asset. Now, I call it an asset because it actually is an asset. Data is the second most important asset that an organisation has after people. Data is what provides organisation strategic value. So what does that mean? Well, if I've got a bank here and a bank here, what differentiates those two banks? We've both got 6.9% as our interest rates for home loans. We both have got credit cards. Our credit cards have got the same interest rates. It's our data that differentiates us. That's how I get my competitive value. It's when I've got a customer, whether I know that they're a high net worth customer or not. Is this a customer I want to look after? It allows me to segment all of my customers and then go, look, these are the customers that I don't care. They're going to churn. We can lose them. They're costing me money anyway. But these are the ones that I actually want to start to look after because they've got a great pull-through. Not only have they got their investment loan, they've got their home loan, they've got their superannuation with us, they're also using our management advisory services. We've got all of these key core pillars that if they all of a sudden move, we're going to lose a significant amount of revenue. But those high net individuals have probably got other companies, they've got other superannuation funds, they maybe run other company structures, so they might have a family trust set up, that all of a sudden you're not just losing one person, you're losing all of that. And if I lost my data, do you think my organisation is going to still be in business tomorrow? Well, it's actually a very, very staggering fact that we've got up here. Now, 48.3% of companies that lose data as part of a DR scenario never actually recover. Effectively, they go out of business, they fold up. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard some of the horror stories of organisations back in January in the floods, that as a result of that impact, all of a sudden they weren't able to open their doors. And it wasn't because they couldn't open their doors because of insurance issues. It wasn't that they lost all of their stock and things like that. It was the fact that they've lost their data. They didn't know who their customers were anymore. Yes, they had the little black book that the salespeople might have, but apart from that, where do I send the invoice to? What are the contact details for my suppliers? In fact, I don't even remember how I ordered the supplier. It just actually happened magically. All my stock on hand got replenished. So all of that data is lost. But what I think is actually even more of a scary fact that is within 2 years, 90% of businesses that have lost data as a result of some form of incident are actually going to be out of business. So that's a scary fact. Basically, we're saying pretty close to 100%. If you've lost data, it's all over Red Rover. You might as well go and close up the doors now. So as DBAs, that's our primary responsibility in an organisation, is protecting that data. If I'm not doing that, then I'm actually not doing my job as a DBA. Now, that doesn't matter whether you're a development DBA, whether you're a production DBA. You as a DBA have to think about, how do I go about protecting those data assets throughout the organisations? So how do we go about doing this? Well, the way that we go about doing this is using what we call a run sheet or maybe a green book. Who here uses a run sheet or a green book or an ops guide at work? It's a checklist. It means that every day, these are the tasks that I perform every day. They get signed off, and we then continually improve that process over time. Now, the reason we have a checklist is these are key core things we have to do. We all live very busy lives. You know, we get in, we've got traffic running in the morning, it's been a horrible morning, I've had the dog chewing on my shoe, I've had my significant other nagging me about something, I've just got in the car, oh, traffic again, get to the office. All I want to do is go downstairs, have a cigarette, get a coffee. By the time I get back up into the office, my boss is in my ear as well. He goes, how are you going with that project plan? Can you give me a status update of where you are? And all of a sudden you get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon and there's these tasks that haven't been done. You've been distracted by other things. What you need to have is this run sheet that you run through every morning. And these are things like, is the SQL Server services up? Yep, is the SQL agent up? Because often what we're checking is we're checking the MS SQL Server service, but we're not checking agent. If the agent's not running, there's significant downstream impacts. We have overnight batch jobs that don't run. We have our consistency checks. We have our backups that don't go and run. So getting into that habit of checking, going through this checklist each morning. Now that might be different for each organisation, but a really good place to start, and I know it's SQL Server 2000, but if you open up your search engine of choice and type in SQL Server Operations Guide, Microsoft, as part of the Microsoft Operations Framework, has prepared that checklist for you. You can actually walk through that step by step, take it and start to utilise it, because you're looking at things like what jobs have failed, what jobs have actually taken longer than they normally should, because you want to be able to see over time, as the data footprint increases, some of my jobs are going to start to increase. So have I got significant time in my maintenance window for those jobs to do? Now, not only do we have a daily checklist as part of our operations guide or green book or whatever you want to call it, we also have our weekly tasks as well. So those weekly tasks are going to be things like, have we actually gone and run a reindex in the last week? What does my fragmentation footprint look like? Have I run consistency checks? And checking that the output of those consistency checks are completed successfully. And it also means restoring a backup as well. So So I've got a saying around database backups. A database backup is never complete until I've been able to restore from it. So what are we saying there? We're saying, well, look, that's great that you're backing up that database, but when was the last time you actually tested a restore? The problem is typically you only need to test a restore in scenarios like January, where all of a sudden it's the experience. What do I do now? And I go and recall my tapes. So I've been sending them off to my third-party provider, an Iron Mountain and a recall. I then get that tape back. I go and pop it in there. I run a catalogue over it. All of a sudden I realise there's actually nothing on that tape. What am I going to restore? And then all of a sudden I pick up the paper and I start looking for a new job. Because really that was what I was employed to do. I was employed to go and protect the data. Now I know it sounds like we're harping on it, it's a bit of a scary thing, but really these are the things that we should be doing. We want to look at how we can automate all of these processes, because we don't want to be sitting behind a keyboard manually doing these tasks every day. The problem is when we manually do these tasks, it means that there's human intervention required. People go on holidays, people get sick. How do we automate this so it's a seamless end-to-end process? Because if you think about our own organisations, as DBAs, we're actually being asked to do more with less. So I want you to cast your mind back. There's a couple of people here with a little bit more grey hair than I do, but let's think about what the workplace looked like 25, 30 years ago. The workplace 25, 30 years ago looked very much like a school or a university, where you'd have a big long desk and have people sitting behind that desk. You'd have an in tray and then you'd have an out tray. So you'd then have somebody with a trolley that would actually move that business process through. So you'd receive paperwork inside of your in tray, you would perform a business process over that, you would then move that to your out tray. Someone would come along and pick it out of your out tray and move that through to somebody else's in tray. That whole workflow process has been replaced by technology and it's been replaced by software. Typically a lot of workflow is now initiated directly by our inbox, known as Outlook. So we get all of these requests that are coming in, we need to process them and do something. But organisations are continually evolving. They're introducing new software all the time to streamline and automate business process. We've introduced CRM systems, we've introduced ERP systems, HR, payroll systems. All of these systems are designed to streamline business process. But the problem with a line of business application like those that we just described is they've got a database sitting behind them. So as more applications are introduced into the organisation, there's more databases that are correspondingly increasing in size inside of the organisation. Not just from the number from a footprint, but also the size. So the challenge as DBAs is, do you think every time a new application comes into your organisation, you get a new DBA to manage that? Of course not. It's just thrown onto your existing workload. And if you look at what's going on with a lot of organisations at the moment, we're actually losing DBAs. So organisations, through natural attrition, somebody moves to a new role, they're not backfilling that role, they're not replacing that person. So we're continually being asked to do more with less. And that's what we want to have a look at in today's presentation, is what tools and technologies have we got available to us today in order to allow us to easily go and perform these daily, weekly and monthly tasks.